One of the things that started to happen that I had to make a decision about, which was very important. When the Black Power movement broke, I got a call from Ebony magazine. And they said, "What is this Black Power stuff? What's going on down there? The people don't know what's happening. How do you explain what's happening?" At that point, you know what people think of Ebony, particularly in academia. See, and I'm going to go in academia. That's where I was headed before I went to Mississippi. So I said to myself, I thought about it. I said, you know, what they're saying is very important. Who's going to communicate all of this stuff to the black community, and where do you communicate it? You have to communicate it where black people are reading. So I said, yes, I would do the article. I wrote, the first article I ever wrote for Ebony was on the Black Consciousness Movement, the Black Power Movement, explaining what was happening in the South. And they published it. And then they kept coming back to me to explain all kinds of things. When they were afraid of doing articles on sex, they said, "Dr. Poussaint, will you write an article on the sexual revolution for black people?" And then when the gay and lesbian movement was done, they said, "Dr. Poussaint, we don't talk about that kind of stuff, is it? Could you know, if it came from an authority like you, can we open the subject on black homosexuals?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." I said, "But the first thing, you're not going to call it black homosexuals and put it on your cover." So they gave me space, and I went around interviewing the head of the Black Gay and Lesbian Association, Phil Wilson, who I still talk to, who heads the Black AIDS Institute. I interviewed him, and we wrote this article for Ebony. And Phil Wilson said that was a major breakthrough in the black community. He told me this year. He was up here to give a speech. He said that article really opened the doors to black ministers and everybody. So I kind of got this role as like explaining and writing, and I put articles in the Negro Digest, which came to Black Digest, and I decided to do pop writing. And I wrote an article for the New York Times Magazine on the experience with that police officer to explain why black people were angry.
Why did you, because as you've mentioned, academically, in terms of the academic community, this was a risk that you were taking, going in this direction in terms of popular writing and magazines and all of that kind of stuff.
Right.
Why did you feel it was so important to do that?
I felt it was important as part of the movement and the mission. That if I felt that as a psychiatrist that a lot of the things I'm talking about deals with mental health issues. And if I wanted to take mental health issues to the people to help explain, help them understand, help them get insight, whatever it was, that was a very important mission, that was a very important public health mission. And that's the way I justified. And I said, if the other academicians don't understand that, it's like their problem. And if they want to punish me for this, then it's their problem. But who's supposed to talk to the people if you're only publishing in journals, you know, which 100 people read, you know, all of this stuff. So that was my position. Fortunately, with the evolution of medicine and the thinking of medicine, prevention has become more and more important. So you see more doctors and everybody jumping into media stuff, writing articles for the New York Times section, all kinds of other things. So it's become more acceptable. And actually, when people started giving me awards here and there for doing that, you know, and saying it was important and so on, it legitimated it in many ways, so that they no longer kind of, it's like, yeah, you have to, some of this you have to do. And then Rutherstein, the president of Harvard, came in and said one of the things that the faculty at Harvard has to do is talk more out there to the community. He said that. I said, great, I've been doing it. So I'm in with the new president of Harvard University. Sometimes, this I learned from the movement too, that sometimes you have to go over the opposite end, like a little extreme, to make people pay attention to a point, because they don't want to consider it anyway. So that piece I wrote, op-ed piece I wrote for the New York Times, where psychiatrists went bananas when I said extreme racism is a mental illness. Okay? Now, the point of that was nowhere in psychiatry, the diagnostic manual, anything, is racism mentioned, race mentioned, prejudice mentioned, bigotry mentioned, nothing, like it doesn't exist. Right? When we know there are patients out there who get psychotic and think they should kill all black people and all Jews and all kinds of other people. So I was saying these extreme forms, if someone thinks they have to kill all blacks because blacks are going to get them, isn't that a delusion? Isn't it paranoia? And then the fact that they're not functioning. That is, they are impaired people because they got all of this crazy stuff. I said, shouldn't that be a mental disorder? Why are you not calling it a mental disorder? And the reason why you're not calling it a mental disorder is that you accept it as normative. And who decides what's normative? Well, they raised hell and wrote all kinds of nasty letters to the Times and everything. I mean, really, they were just outrageous. But you know what happened? In the inner circles, you know what they did now with the thing? They have now made a call a year ago for research projects looking into the nature and function of racism in the psyche of people. And Ted Koppel put it on and really made the American Psychiatric Association look bad when he did his show on Nightline. So now they're in a, well, this has to be our concern. Let's do research. Let's see where it fits into the picture. The mental process. Is it a personality disorder? What happens along the spectrum? You can be a little bit prejudiced and you can be extreme prejudiced. Is extreme prejudice a mental illness? Because you can be a little bit depressed, but if you get way over here, and a lot of us, they say you got a mental disorder. You have little bit of anxiety, but you get way over here and you're anxious all the time. You have an anxiety disorder. So when does racism become a disorder? That's a legitimate question that they didn't,
want to deal with.
Anyway.